not to be a broken record to everybody listening, but I think there's fairly widespread acknowledgement that a lot of what is done on social media is,
Negative.
well, it's impression management. It's
Yes.
putting the best foot.
Yeah, it hasn't been good for mentality, the mental well-being of people. There's been a fair amount of research on that.
Yeah, partly because if everybody is selecting their best moments when their beautiful kids make the vegan brownies.
You've got the ascending story,
right,
with none of the oscillation. And if that's what you're putting out for public consumption and your kids are on there and that's what they're getting, it's a generation of future workers who are fairly brittle.
Yeah,
Maybe. I mean, we're extrapolating.
You're extrapolating. Yeah, I'm less comfortable with. We should absolutely do a podcast on generations, but
I don't think this is a generational issue. I think you have parents who have decided, or adults who have decided, for impression management reasons, to only present the ascending story. It is impacting the generation below, but it's also impacting everybody else around them.
Yeah, I mean, your point is well taken about, and a lot of people know if all you're presenting is the good, that's not realistic. That's a very high bar. And eventually, what do you do when your own life can't live up to that? When the inevitable setbacks come in your own life.
Well, and I think you see that in the research that has been done on social media that has shown how damaging it can be to mental well-being. And that's not age specific. That is heavy social media users having problems with their mental well-being because of comparisons, even though logically you should be able to say it's not all vegan brownies that are delicious.
Right. And not all of my friends are always on the beach and the other half are flying around in private jets.
Right.
And that's the key word. I mean, I think the main problem of social media is that humans, we evolved to be highly socially comparative, which is just a goofy way of saying to constantly be looking for how's everybody else doing and how am I fitting in. And that's what helped us live together in groups. That's what helped us stay in the tribe and fit in. But our instincts weren't meant to have everybody on an electronic medium where you're comparing not just to the people within your tribe around your campfire, but the whole...
Right, where you might see the other side just by being around them. If it's just your tribe in a campfire, yeah, maybe they are only talking about the vegan brownies that are delicious, but you're also seeing how many times they baked something and it was a failure.
Yeah.
So
have more visibility on
right. Whereas this is a limited visibility that's happening,
right?
Because you're not co-located with this particular.
Yeah, I've never flown on a private jet, but and I was an early adopter I'm now in my mid 50s, and social media came out when I was in graduate school studying communication, so I was extremely open and experimental to all these things. But within probably 18 months of being on social media, I got off everything. And so those comparisons don't work. And you have to, I remember the story of one of our mentors, Howard Prince, the late, great Howard Prince. I remember he was in Vietnam in the thick of it as an infantry captain commanding a company, which at the time, the tour of duty was 13 months and the average infantryman lived 8 months.
That's not good.
No.
That's not good math.
Yeah. And he told me, and he was honest, and he was my boss at the time. He's like, I was terrified. And it's like, I've been afraid of stuff before, but I was actually terrified. And he said and so, I asked like, well, how were you able to function as the leader of these 120 people if you're terrified? Basically is what I asked. And he says, well, we had our battalion commander, our boss was killed in combat, and they flew out a new guy, and the guy came out. I think the guy's name was Vaught. And he said, this guy came out and he gathered the 4 company commanders. So it was Howard and 3 other guys. And then this colonel, And he's like, okay, gentlemen, my name's Colonel Vaught. Pleased to meet y'all. Just so we're clear and we get it out of the way, I'm terrified. And I assume you are too. But we're going to figure this out and we're going to do the best we can. Good enough? And Howard said just hearing his boss acknowledge caused him to feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. I thought there was something wrong with my leadership. I thought there was something wrong with my competence.
Yeah, right, right.
Can I do this job? These other people aren't. And he says he remembered, just looking around and the other captains, his peers were like, yeah, us too. Yeah. Right. So it was a clarifying moment. And it's why this idea that we're talking about, we framed it up as why sharing some of your weaknesses or your mistakes or the things that you're afraid of, or to use Brene Brown's lingo on it, being vulnerable, but just being honest about something that doesn't present you in the best light may ironically actually present you in the best light.
It may present you in the best light, but it may also help other people feel safe figuring out how to get themselves into the best light. A much milder story, but the other day I landed and we have somebody who books all our travel. And so I got to the, and I trust her. So I just get to the rental car and I pull up my phone just to confirm the hotel I'm going to. And there's nothing there. And so then I call her and I can't reach her. So I'm getting a voicemail message and I'm like, hey, I don't see where I'm going. I'm assuming it's this place. I'm going to head that way.
Yeah.
And just let me know if, you get this message. Otherwise, I'll figure it out when I get there. And she calls me up. And sure enough, I'm not going to that hotel. I was going in that general direction, but I wasn't going to that hotel. And we were kind of laughing. And she said, she's like, yeah, I just forgot to put it on there. I got sidetracked. And she said, but it really takes a huge amount of pressure off of me to know that you'll just figure it out. Like,
yeah, sure.
I'm pretty certain that there's probably a hotel, and even if there's not, it's fixable. And so I'm just heading in the direction of the gig. And if I don't hear from her, I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be a growing interest in perfectionist research, but just the stress that builds up if you're always trying to be perfect or present yourself as,
or have no mistakes.
Yeah. I think this is a good point to talk about the Adam Grant research about it. It can be very reaffirming to, as you said, admit mistakes and shortcomings. Adam Grant has done research that suggests an important provision, that's when people know you're credible. And if they don't know you're credible, starting off with a weakness or self-deprecating humor can actually be counterproductive. Like in a job interview, don't start with
right. Don't start with, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like that's,
or that, be self-deprecating. I'm learning, I'm trying to pick this up. Well, they need to know have status and credibility before you start with the self-deprecation.
Or the vulnerability, either one. I think it falls up with both.
Yeah. It's why the classic question of an interview of what's one of your weaknesses is such a trick question.
I hate that question.
The studies suggest don't answer that. Don't answer that honestly, because it's too early.
I've always thought, obviously you can't care about the job interview, but I've always been tempted with that question to answer it as my greatest weakness is I hate this question.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I used to tell people years ago when I was teaching an interviewing class, I used to tell them, do you sometimes work too hard and that.
I know. That's been the advice for a while. You frame a strength as a weakness.
Yeah. And like you can hate it But the research suggests don't answer that question.
Sure. I can see that. I can see that
Yeah.
with the research. They don't know you, so you can't.
They don't know you.
How
Yeah. So you tell them a real weakness. Sometimes I procrastinate. Well, that's it. Why you're in this final phase. There's only 3 of you. I cleared these 100 resumes we got. And one person says she works too hard. The other says I procrastinate, was dumb enough to answer correctly. And the other person says, well, sometimes I get tunnel vision.
Sometimes I care too much.
Right. And so you're not picking the procrastinator.
Right.
So that's why there's science. We may not like what it says, but I'll point out, you're almost never interviewing for a job. You're almost never an unknown. Your life is around embedded relationships where people know you and you do have credibility. Then go back to Howard's example with General Vought. The Army rank confers recognition that this person made it to colonel. He knows what he's doing. Just like if your doctor walked in and admitted to, I can't believe I was late this morning or whatever. You might actually find that endearing because this is a doctor with the stethoscope in a white suit who you're calling doctor. And so it's important to not overly insist on perfection or that everything always gets better.